Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to Made Futures Live. We've gone live about a minute early, so anyone joining us now, we're just going to wait until 10 past exactly, just to make sure everyone else joins the stream. Thanks for joining today. We're just going to be chatting a little bit about a story for the Made Futures book, which Additive-X submitted as well. Who are our Made in Yorkshire member. So for anyone who doesn't know as well, Made Futures is a virtual skills and careers week we're doing in March. And what we're doing today is Made Futures Live, which is going to be a series we do every Tuesday leading up to the Made Futures exhibition in March, where we're holding live interviews with members to talk about their inspirational stories in the Made Futures book, which is a publication we're putting out in March, full of stories from Midlands and Yorkshire members as well. So today we're joined by Jacob Wilson. Good afternoon, Jacob.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate.
Good.
So Jacob, me and him spoke before to do a story for the Made Futures book. Jacob is currently in a technical sales role at Additive-X. You may know Additive-X as GoPrint 3D. Recently rebranded. They're a Made in Yorkshire member, have been for a while. North Yorkshire based company who provides 3D printer additive manufacturing solutions. So we thought it'd be really good to speak to Jacob today to provide a bit more information about additive manufacturing industry and sort of his journey to this point in his career, because we feel like from the conversation me and Jacob had before that additive manufacturing could be sort of real good route for a lot of people to pursue who are looking for new career paths, people straight out of school, things like that, especially. And so to give a bit of context, Jacob decided to pursue a level 3 apprenticeship in manufacturing engineering after leaving a sixth form college, which I'm going to speak about a little bit more today as well. And then Jacob joined Additive-X in 2017, and since then he's been providing sort of technical sales and consultancy support, and to a really wide range of industries as well, including aerospace, automotive, motorsport, medical, all industries looking for additive manufacturing solutions. So yeah, thanks for joining us today, Jacob.
It's okay. Yeah, no worries.
Could you tell us a little bit about how you were sort of first introduced to the idea of working in 3D printing, additive manufacturing, that sort of world?
Sure. So I was at a UTC. That was where I did my GCSEs, and in the workshops we were typically working on older machinery, manual lathes, that sort of thing. And there was one 3D printer in the school, and no one really used it. No one knew how to use it, and it was sort of seen as this, machine of the future, and everyone looked at it as if it was sort of this impossible machine to use. So that sort of sparked my interest in what 3D printing was. And then I found out that my brother, who's about 5 years older than me, was doing an internship in Amsterdam, and it was at a company called 3D Hubs. Really new at that point. They were just a startup with a few employees, and he was telling me about how he works in 3D printing. So that was what really sparked my interest in it. The fact that we had this machine at school that no one really knew how to use, and my brother was working in it. So that was really sort of what got me interested in it.
Yeah, it's nice. So Amsterdam, how did you find that sort of?
Yeah, so a couple of years later when I was in school, we had to do work experience. So I thought the logical thing to do was, go and spend a week in Amsterdam with my brother, which was nice. But obviously, it was good to be in a small startup company, really modern, really sort of forward-thinking company, and it was good because it was such a small company at that point. You got to see loads of areas of the business that you wouldn't normally get to see if you went to like a big PLC for a week. And that was where obviously I got more exposure to 3D printing. At that point, in the office, they had really basic 3D printers, but it was still so interesting to me at that point because it was so new. But I just found it sort of really interesting to watch and to see everyone working in that sort of environment. Yeah, it was really good.
I bet, yeah, that's awesome. Not many people get that experience, do they? For on their first sort of work experiences, going and seeing something like that, that's amazing. Additive manufacturing or 3D printing probably isn't the first thing people think of when they think of Amsterdam, but I bet it was an amazing experience for you
Sure.
nonetheless.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
So as well, sort of moving on from that, what sort of other sort of working experience did you get prior to the apprenticeship you did as
So
well?
before the apprenticeship, I was working just in a kitchen in a pub in the sort of local area, but then that was my sort of first real work experience. But then sort of relevant work experience, I did a week at the fire service in Staffordshire as well. I was sort of trying to get exposure to all different kinds of environments, public sector, private sector, all different areas. So I did a week in the fire service, which was it was good, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. The week in the 3D hubs was what made me decide that that's what I wanted to do. Then at the apprenticeship, after I'd left college, well after the work experience, at my apprenticeship, it was a core apprenticeship in level 3 manufacturing, but that company had loads of different subsidiaries, and one of them was called G3D. So it was all about resin 3D printing for the jewelry industry. And I sort of ended up there. Apprentices didn't normally end up there, but I wasn't that keen on the machining side of things. I was really keen on CAD, so I picked that up and I did loads of work on it. And they needed someone to go and help over there, so I ended up there working on the machines. And I was in that area of the business for about a year, looking after the machines in the sort of UK hub that did benchmarking samples for customers, resin trials, casting trials. And I got really in depth with that particular technology, DLP, which is, in terms of additive manufacturing or 3D printing, it's like a tiny area in it. It doesn't cover additive manufacturing. It's just one particular technology. But I got really in depth with that, and I was there for about a year.
Brilliant, yeah. That sounds like a really good experience as well. Interesting. You tried something different. Obviously, you said didn't you about the sort of fire department route, and I think it's important for people to try different things, isn't it? Especially
Yeah, definitely. I think when you're still young and you're at school and you're doing work experience, a lot of people go for the easy route and they go and work with their mum or dad for a week, or they just go for but that's such a good opportunity to go and try different things. It's a week. It doesn't matter if you don't like it. It's just about trying it. So yeah, it's such an important thing to try and make it worth your while.
Definitely, yeah. I think for the long term, it can be really important to try different things early on because it can give you a greater appreciation for sort of the route you have taken if you know you try different things and didn't enjoy it as much as well. Yeah, that's great. And with that level 3 apprenticeship in manufacturing engineering, how did you find that generally? Is it the sort of thing if you had someone in your position back then asking for you for advice, would you recommend that sort of?
Yeah, I'd probably recommend taking it a step earlier than I did. So I finished my GCSEs, and at that point, I could have either stayed on for sixth form, done A levels, or I could have gone and done a level 3 apprenticeship straight away. I chose the sixth form route because I hadn't really made my mind up yet. I hadn't thought about it properly, and I thought the easy thing to do is to stay at the same college and just move to sixth form and do my A levels. After a year of doing it, I realized I wasn't keen on it. I'm not academic enough for it. So I then looked at level 3 apprenticeships, and I technically went back a year because my friends who had already gone and done level 3 apprenticeships had already been doing them for a year by the time I went and did it. But if I was in the same position again, I'd do it again because it took me out of the academic situation and put me into more practical applications. At the apprenticeship, it was worked a bit differently than a normal apprenticeship. So we did full-time education for about a year, maybe 6 months a year, just doing the course full-time. And then you got put into a position. In my case, it was the 3D printing position. But on that course, you learn so many different things, machining, so learning how to use milling machines, lathes, hand tools, but also all of the theory behind it as well. Different manufacturing methods like casting and forming and tools. So it was really good, and it provided like a good foundation for the next step. But yeah, I definitely recommend it to people.
Yeah. Well, like, I think you've got to give yourself massive sort of kudos for making that active decision to step out of something that you knew wasn't for you, because I think we've all seen and we all know people in our personal lives who've gone down that traditional route, maybe of like you said, an academic route, and it's not for them. They're not the sort of person for it, but they continue it because it can be easy to go with the flow than to actually break away from that, like you did. I think a lot of people should consider that you should evaluate.
And I think apprenticeships are being seen now as more of a good thing. I think when I was a few years ago, when I was in school, it was like some people would say, oh, you'll have a certain limit you can reach without going and doing your A levels and a degree and whatever. But apprenticeships now, they're offering degrees. So you're not only getting the work experience, but you're getting paid to do a degree too. So it's they're much more valuable, I think, or seen as valuable now, which is good.
Yeah, definitely. There's so many options out there as well with them as well. And going forward a little bit, so you've joined Additive-X in 2017, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Since joining, what are some of the major projects, some of the responsibilities you've had that are, sort of stick out that you're most proud of, that you most enjoyed?
So when I was at the last company, the one thing that was making me think about wanting to come here was the range of machines. Additive-X, or at the time it was GoPrint 3D and Express Group. It was like an established company that's been going for like 30 years, and they've got this 3D arm, GoPrint 3D, and they've got a really nice range of printers. So I was just thinking exposure to more technologies, learning new machines, new materials, and getting hands-on, and also doing the sales side of things and dealing with such a massive range of customers. So that was what was really appealing. And then since I've been here, we've expanded the range even more. So personally, I work mainly on the HP printers, and they're a brand that we took on not too long ago, about a year ago maybe. And that's a big thing for us because they're a really big name, big industrial machine. And it's completely different technology to what we worked with before. So it's taken that sort of range of machines to the next step. So that was a really big thing. And just being exposed to different areas of the business. So we recently changed softwares internally, so I was involved in that. And that gave me sort of exposure to different parts of the business, which I wouldn't normally see, which was, I thought, really beneficial. And the trade shows as well, that's the other big thing that I really enjoy. Obviously at the moment it's not ideal because there aren't any physical trade shows, but hopefully they'll come back soon. But there's one every year called TCT, and that's specifically for additive manufacturing, and we do that every year in Birmingham, and it's a great show. You get to see people in person, there's new announcements, and that's one of the big things that I look forward to every year.
Yeah, I bet there's quite a bit of added responsibility, isn't there, with those sort of trade shows as well, and getting to interact with sort of new customers, teach them a bit more about what your company's been doing and things like that.
Yeah, that's great.
Barcelona, did you go there for as well?
So when we signed up with HP, obviously HP are based in Barcelona, or their sort of additive manufacturing facility is, and as part of the training, I went to Barcelona, and that was to learn how to operate the machine, how to talk about the machine, and also how to sell it. So I went there for about, I think it was a long weekend, or it was a few days, and it was great. It was a great experience because you got to see the whole facility, and their facility in Barcelona is massive. It's absolutely huge, and we got a tour of it. We got to see all the different printers, and it wasn't just the 3D stuff we got to see. We got to see their normal, 2D printers, so large format for fabrics and prints, that sort of thing. So it was a really good experience, yeah. And I went there on my own, which was pretty cool.
Wow, how long into the role was that you?
Probably about a year and a half. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, Amsterdam, Barcelona. It's quite quite exotic, isn't it? Additive what's going on. Nice. And yeah, so for anyone who joined a bit later, we were saying that we're doing these events to speak about news stories for our Made Futures book coming out in March that sort of really appeal to us. We thought other people should really find out more about. So that's why we're doing the interview with Jacob today. And Jacob, you mentioned when we did the initial interview with you for the article that sort of the additive manufacturing movement is growing really quickly, and there's a really wide number of opportunities available in the sector, which can only grow more as companies continue to adopt digital manufacturing as a technology to invest in. And just we're talking a lot about how additive manufacturing is really growing, and it's probably a really nice prospect for people looking for a new career path, people finishing school, things like that. Do you have any particular advice for anyone considering a career in additive manufacturing?
Yeah, I think it depends where you are. I think if you're in a school or college or in a university, find out if you've got a 3D printer, and if you do, find out if it's used. And if it's not used, then use it and learn how to use it. Because if you become the person who learns it, and you can find new applications for it, and all of a sudden, you're creating its own department and team. And I think a lot of schools and colleges and university technical colleges, that sort of thing, they, like my old one, they had a printer lying around and it wasn't used. So if you're there, try and find one and use it. If you're not in school and you're sort of in a business and you'd like to see how you can implement it, then all it takes is for you to sort of find one application for printing and apply it. And it's all about the experience. So if you're in a school and you get that experience with that printer, then it gives you such an advantage, because they don't do in colleges and for GCSEs, they don't do a course in additive manufacturing. When I did product design for my GCSE, there wasn't any mention of 3D printing. So if you can have the extra edge on someone else because you've got some hands-on experience with 3D printing, or you did a week's work experience at a company and you use their 3D printers, then you've already got a big step ahead of someone else who hasn't done that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's really good advice. I think it probably applies to a lot of different sectors, a lot of different career opportunities as well. That sort of difference you can make to make yourself stand out. And yeah, well, it's been really good to speak to you today, Jacob. We're going to end it there.
Great.
But
Thank you for having me.
yeah, thank you for joining. It's a really interesting story, I think. Like I said, Amsterdam, Barcelona, and more broadly, just additive manufacturing, I think it's an interesting sector for people who don't know a lot about it. So anyone considering different career paths, I'd look it up definitely, because there's a lot going on. It's really growing. And anyone who wants to sort of find out more about Jacob's story, make sure to read the article that's coming out in the Made Futures book in March. And otherwise, we look forward to seeing you next week when we're going to hear from another member for our Made Futures book. Yasmin's going to be talking to a Midlands-based company and getting some insight from another story. So I'm going to leave it there. Thanks again for joining, Jacob, and thank you everyone for listening.